this year, for example, we were much more active in a faster way than we were last year. We did the same amount of investment we did the whole 2014, we did on the first half of 2015. And of course, the deal flow is great. We could deploy much more money if we could, if we have money. So I believe that that's getting better, and we're seeing more and more prepared entrepreneurs attacking more interesting problems, and they have their feet on the ground. They know what they're talking about. They know how to discuss that with the funds and things like that. So there's a huge improvement on that. On the role of accelerators and incubators, we work very well with them. We have a few investments with different of them. The thing that I believe that they're having the more impact is on inspiring people to do things, because that's something that is also gonna have a huge impact on entrepreneurship in Brazil. If you talk to a guy that is leaving a top university in Brazil right now, maybe I don't know how crisis is gonna affect that, but if you make the question to the guy like 10 years ago, what do you want to do? Probably he's gonna say, I want to work for a big company. I want to work for Accenture, I want to work for IBM, for Itaú, and things like that. Now, majority of those guys, they want to start their own company. So a lot of that is because of the work that all these agencies and institutions are doing to spread entrepreneurship, and I believe that's going to generate lots of good things for us.
Yeah, just addressing the question, also adding on Manuel, I totally agree with that. And we see two ways of having a good deal flow. One of course, is that you develop a thesis, a proprietary thesis, and you go after the specific profile of deals that you're looking for. For example, if you have an education thesis or in healthcare space. But the other one is more of a passive deal flow. And for that, we rely a lot on the ecosystem. First, each fund got to present themselves with their values and what they believe and how they see the market and who they want to attract. I think this is important, and it's getting more clear. It's getting clearer every day. And I think also that accelerators have a huge, and other players in the ecosystem, they have a huge responsibilities on educating and preparing the startups to raise with venture capital funds. Sometimes, or in the past, you would see some entrepreneurs not so prepared, and sometimes they would waste an opportunity in front of VC because they were not as prepared as they should. So I think accelerators not only help them shape their business, but also build up their confidence and help them be better prepared to pitch to investors. And I think this is a major role. And as you have initiatives, and we were talking about this, I don't remember, the dinner the other day, I don't remember who said that, but in the past, startups would not talk to each other. And now you see a really strong ecosystem where they are exchanging, and this is good for everybody, because I believe that in Brazil we still have room for many companies, and everybody's going to get more from a more collaborative environment.
I'll just add one quick thing on the accelerator piece specifically. I think a few years ago, accelerators seemed to be focused on flipping companies out of the accelerator very quickly at a high valuation. I think that's a mistake. I think the accelerators should really focus on building that bit, helping the companies build their business, and giving them the hard lessons if they're not doing something right. And I think that's something that's essential for the accelerators. And we're each a step in the ecosystem, really. I mean, we're all trying to help the companies grow. And the intermediate valuations are not as important as the end point. So don't, as an accelerator, be entrepreneurial friendly. Don't take too huge a stake out of the entrepreneur's business, because I think that's one mistake I've seen. Secondly, help them build a business and pose the tough questions. If they're not focused on the right things, tell them they're not focused on the right things and get them focused on the right things. If they're not looking at the biggest market, get them to look at the biggest market and focus on that, and really build a business. Don't worry about what the intermediate valuation is. If the company's successful, you'll do well, we'll do well, the entrepreneur will do well at that. So I think that's the most important thing that I would say. And again, the ecosystem is still very young. And I think accelerators, when they first came out, it was a little bit sexy to create an accelerator. I'm going to put a lot of companies through here. I'm going to put I'm going to get big valuations. I need to prove myself, etc. Prove yourself by building good businesses first, and I think everything else will follow. That's good.
And I'm just going to add one point that you mentioned about the taking too much ownership. You know, what I've seen from incubators in Brazil early on was, you know, a huge ownership stake at about 20%. And so if you forecast that along the life of the company, the funding rounds they're going to have to do, that's going to remove the incentive of the entrepreneur, because at the end, he's not going to have anything left. So you have to plan ahead, assuming how many rounds you're going to have for that particular company, so that the cap table structure remains with incentive for the entrepreneurs to build the business and grow and take it to a level that everybody wants, which is make a lot of money for investors.
Just a reflection about the lack of multi-billion dollar exits in Brazil. Brazil now has the prices of India while being almost at the same time zone at the US, with much more easier cultural fit and everything. So I see now it's a time to make billion-dollar companies in Brazil.
I'm just going to comment real quickly about that, because I do think that you do have in certain markets that have been able to create multi-billion-dollar companies in their local market. I'm going to use the example of Korea, for instance. You have Naver, you have Down Kakao, both the companies that are operating in Korea alone. In Korea, if you're looking from a population point of view, it's much smaller than Brazil. Of course, the per capita income there is much higher. But I do believe that you can create these multi-billion-dollar companies for a market, or even a regional, because if you think about Brazil, I mean, you have the opportunity to also scale to Latin America. But I think the real big challenge is how to scale the business to get to a level that is a big player in that market. It has consolidated revenues, and it has numbers that are attractive for institutional investors, not only from Brazil, but global, to propel that company to become.
Totally agree with André. I believe we can build multiple billion-dollar companies in Brazil for sure. But there is one thing that probably we have the role to change, which is we need to be able to give more capital to those guys to reach the size of those companies. That's something that there is maybe some type of a shrink in certain types of level of rounds of investments. And you won't be able to build a billion-dollar companies if you stop funding at 10 million rounds. So we need to see 50, 60, $100 million rounds happening to create those type of companies. And we also need, as Renata just told me, to see the entrepreneurs focus on generating good numbers of that. Otherwise, it won't be able to, neither to be funded, neither to be exit on those high valuations. Yes.
Okay, next question. I just will ask you to introduce yourself, tell where you're from.
Chuck Jones, here locally, and I write for Forbes.com. To build off this gentleman's statements, this from the panel, what are the one or two biggest challenges Brazilian companies to be able to jump into the United States market and be successful here?
Just looking from my perspective, because I back companies that are global winners as well. One area that Brazil hasn't seen much, they don't have a lot of experience in, is customer acquisition and sort of design product capabilities. And when you're competing head-to-head against people who have been growth hackers or really building products that can take off like Slack, and in 6 months they dominate, I haven't seen that type of talent be prolific or pervasive in Brazil. And especially as we raise more capital, knowing how to invest and bring profitable revenue and continue to scale that over and over, it's a hard thing to do. And then the second is not lack of ambition, I think it's lack of been there, done that. The white hair that sort of knows the problems and can really take companies in Brazil to get from 0 to 10 million in revenue, very easy to see. The 10 to 100 million, very, very hard. 100 million and beyond, almost, it's a rarity. And this is what we're missing, sort of the 10 to 100, 100 and beyond.
To build a little bit on that, I think this product management, professionalism of product management is not something that we've seen in Brazil yet, I don't think. If you look at the Valley here, you've got people who have done it, been trained by the people who've done it, been trained by someone else who's done it. You've got those generations of product managers. I was at Google for 9 years, and there was a system by which people were kind of brought out of college, trained in the Google way of product management, et cetera. And then they went on within Google or outside of Google. And so that you don't have in Brazil yet. Again, I don't know if we can expect it in Brazil yet because the ecosystem is so young, but I do think it's incumbent on entrepreneurs who have been successful and the exits that we've seen, Scott Bay, what have you, to pass on to the next generation of entrepreneurs that learning. And also, I think there's, what we're doing here with the Valley and Brazil, bringing some of that experience back also. And I think that's what's going to be critical over the next several years to build these big companies. Because, again, if you look at pitch decks from Brazilians versus U.S. companies, the biggest thing that stands out to me, at least, is the metrics, the knowledge of the metrics and the understanding the fine points of the metrics of your business. And I think that's something that is kind of product management business. I feel like a lot of companies here will start with a dashboard and build their business off of that dashboard, knowing the metrics. In Brazil, it's the other way around. They build their business and then they figure out the dashboard to figure out the metrics. And so I think, again, it's not that I'm criticizing Brazilians, it's very early in the ecosystem. But I think that's something that needs to change over time, and you need to get that professionalism and product management in.
Here in the US, it's almost like a science. I mean, people can really explain to you, if you give me $1, I'm going to spend it here, 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 and I'm going to get 5 out of it or 10 out of it. And they know every single lever, be it on channels, be it on product, be on even the color of the little click button, the placement. I mean, people A, B, C, D test everything maniacally. And that culture of trying different things until one stick, oh, that was better than the other thing, let me do more. And it's a very rare thing, and it's a science. It's not something that you stumble on and you just can't explain. You need to be able to replicate it. That's how people are going to give you, okay, $50 million or $100 million, because you can tell me where you're going to make, what are you going to buy with that?
So I'm going to be a little provocative in this statement right now, but I would say that if the Brazilian company wants to come compete in the US, one of the primary things they're going to have to learn is how to build a very good customer service, because customer service in Brazil sucks.
Well, I would like also to answer a little bit of this question in a different perspective. And I'm answering that because of the experience as we have in Apex Brazil in helping Brazilian companies to go abroad and to export. There is also one of our main strengths is our local market, and it's a strength, it's a weakness, because some of our entrepreneurs and our companies, they focus on this huge market in Brazil, and they forget a little bit about learning what's going on abroad and going global when they start. So the mindset of the Brazilian entrepreneurs, they need to change as well, maybe in university, at the university level, in initiatives like Cubo. So people start their business and their business models thinking globally. So I think also we need a change in our mindset of our entrepreneurs in Brazil as well.
I would like to build a little bit on that. I think I don't want to simplify it too much, but in the end, I think it boils down to it's part of the learning curve in Brazil. I think our job here and everyone in the ecosystem is to keep raising the bar, but we gotta be careful not to raise it too much unless we're gonna create anxiety in the whole ecosystem. I think we gotta see the US as a model. But again, I think we have a huge market in Brazil, and it's a great place for us to learn, because as Renata said earlier, we're kind of protected there, because Brazilians are more prepared to do business in Brazil than US companies. I was talking to a company the other day, and they were asking how it would be to go to Brazil and start the operation there. And I said, as Renata was mentioning, it's much easier if you wait to see who's the winner and you go and acquire, because you're not going to start from scratch. So there are opportunities for Brazilians there, so I think it's a great moment and place to learn and go through this learning curve. And I think it's our job to encourage, help them change the mindset, and also give all the support that they need. But always keep raising the bar, make them grow faster and stronger.
I will raise another question. It's about co-investments in Brazil. This is something that Apex Brazil has fostered. We've been working with Brazilian GPs, and we've been bringing them to the US to make partnerships to investments in Brazil. We believe that this might be a good strategy for a venture capitalist which doesn't know the legislation, which is complex in Brazil, which sometimes doesn't know the market, how it works, and how different regions work against each other. So I know that some of you have made co-investments in Brazil. So I want to listen to you. What are your thoughts? This is a good strategy to enter the Brazilian market. So what do you think about this?
No, I think that if you think about the value that VCs can bring to companies, we look at a bunch of things that are happening across a bunch of companies, so we can say, this market's interesting, whatnot, but really is about helping you hire and bringing you customers, right? To do it from thousands of kilometers and without a network is really, really hard. So I think you are able to help a lot more if you partner with somebody who will have that local network and can really sort of be synergistic with you, that you can bring, okay, best practices in the US, or if product management is something that you need to think about, okay, have these companies that are the best at what they do, this founder should talk to these companies. But if they tell me, oh, I want to hire VP sales, I can't even start helping them, right? So this is the best model, that you bring what you do best and you partner with people who are really specialized in that market and have the right relationships to help the company grow. It's not about being greedy and having the most of something that doesn't grow too much, but how can we make the pie bigger?
And also the follow-on investments, because majority of the local funds in Brazil, they're focused on Series A. So I mean, when we look to what Renata is doing in other funds here, they're doing bigger checks, and we need to start building those relationships. In the end, it's a really, really big relationship business. We're being very, how can I say, prolific on doing co-investments. We have co-investment with majority of the funds, majority of our friends here, and we're very open to that. We believe in the end we're joining forces. Of course, that we have to make a deal that makes sense for everybody, but we're trying to be flexible on that because we see the value of partnering with other funds as well.
So I'll just share a little bit about our experience in terms of going overseas. So we've been investing in China since 1999. We didn't go to China on our own. We found a strategic partner in China at the time, which is the Legend Holdings, which is the venture capital arm of the Nova Group. And we had a strategic relationship where we would get deal flow from them, and they would know the local market, and we would do the reverse here in the US. They will also look in the US. We did something very similar with a couple other folks in Japan. So our approach has always been to find that strategic partner to develop the practice of the market and then grow from there. I think that Manuel touched a good point, which is when you're looking to get to those strategic partnerships, one of the things to think about is how is the syndicate for follow-on rounds of investments are going to be together. Because if you are partnering with somebody that can only participate in one round, then you're going to be dry out trying to find other co-investors who come to the table and participate with you in the subsequent rounds. So I think that that's where thinking about the partnerships would make a lot of sense. It's looking at these dynamics.
The only thing I'll add to that is I think just as companies should be hiring with complementary skill sets, I think investors have complementary skill sets. And so you want to bring them all together. Again, the goal is growing big companies. And so your team should be complementary, your investors should be complementary by expertise, by connections, by scale and what they can invest. So I think it's all about kind of putting the puzzle pieces together. And I think as investors, we've invested with at least 2 people on this stage, and we'd like to invest with the other 2. So, this way too. So, but I think we're very. That's what you'll see in the venture space. I think in Brazil is that investors are very willing to work together on things. And again, it's still early enough that we're trying to grow the pie overall.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think the companies they need to plan how they're going to build the set of investors that they're going to have from the beginning, right from when they are seeking for angels. So how is the angel going to fit into my company? How is this angel going to help me? And how the next round, the seed or Series A, VC is going to help me? And what is my plan ahead? So we know that it's not easy to raise money, and it's not easy to choose who you're raising with. But I think it's something that has to be on the mindset of the entrepreneurs, and later when they bring investors in, they also gotta help the company to plan this ahead and see who is the Series A investors I want to join the company, the Series B, and so on. So just to add on what Antoine said.